Today, we're taking a look back at the Goonies II for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or as the console is more commonly known as, the NES. Developed and published by Konami, this platformer, based loosely around the characters of the movie The Goonies, was released in Japan and North America in 1987. Europe then received the game the following year in 1988. Though in North America and Europe, we simply know the game as the Goonies II, in Japan the game went by the name, and forgive me if I butcher this pronunciation, Goonies II Furetari Saigo no Chosen, which translates directly as the Goonies II, the Fratelli's Last Stand. But here's where things can get a little bit confusing. The Goonies II is the sequel to the Famicom game Goonies II, or Goonies, which surprisingly never made it to the NES consoles of North America or Europe. Thus, some individuals may mistakenly believe that Goonies II is based on the movie of the same name, which doesn't even exist. However, Goonies II or Goonies did make an appearance in North America for the arcade versus system, just never for the NES, so some never knew the game actually existed. So let's very briefly talk about the story, but be warned, like many NES games, there really isn't one that has very much depth to it. You play as the protagonist, Mikey, who's part of a group of children called the Goonies. His fellow Goonies have been captured by the Fratellis, an Italian mob family. It's then up to Mikey to rescue all of the Goonies from their cells that they're being kept in. The Fratellis have also managed to capture a mermaid who goes by the name of Anna, and of course it's up to Mikey to free her as well. Yeah, I know, that synopsis was straight to the point, and honestly that's pretty much the extent of the story you're going to get with this game. But, more importantly, onto the gameplay. The Goonies II is a platformer first and foremost. You'll be navigating the levels by jumping from ledge to ledge, on and off moving platforms, and climbing up and down ladders and vines. However, there are two different scenarios in which this changes, the first being during the underwater sections, where you'll simply be swimming and shooting your harpoon, and the second is when you enter a doorway, but we'll talk more about doorways here in a bit. Your health, or energy as it is known, is gauged by bars on the top right portion of the screen. The health bars work as you would probably expect. They would gradually decrease as Mikey is damaged by enemies, items, or environmental hazards. At the game's start, Mikey has only 2 bars of health, but each time a Goonie is rescued, 1 additional bar is added. Obviously, when all of these bars are depleted, a life is lost. By default, Mikey has 3 lives. Once all 3 lives are gone, the player receives a game over. The player is then given the option to continue. If they do continue, they will spawn back to where they last died. However, all keys and all weapons with ammunition will now be gone, forcing the player to collect more if they are needed. Mikey has a variety of different weapons at his disposal for handling enemies. However, the player will start off with nothing more than a yo-yo, which is just your basic short-range weapon. But, as the game progresses, both a boomerang and a slingshot can be unlocked to be used as a primary weapon. And also, by default, a harpoon is used in underwater areas. The boomerang has a much longer range than the yo-yo, but can be a bit slow returning to Mikey. And then the slingshot is extremely useful, being able to fire long-range shots at enemies. However, unlike the boomerang and yo-yo, it requires ammunition, and that means it's lost if the player receives a game over. In the underwater levels, like I stated, the harpoon is unlocked automatically, so it doesn't need to be found. It's simply used to shoot harpoons at the enemies. Going back quickly to the boomerang, it is worth noting that although it doesn't use ammunition, there is one point in the game where it can be lost, and that's during the bridge crossing area. In this area, one of the enemies has the ability to grab the boomerang from Mikey and take off with it, which means if this happens, the player will have to go back and get the boomerang again. We covered the primary weapons, but there are also 2 secondary weapons that can be used, the bomb and the Molotov cocktail. Both these items require ammunition, which means they're lost on a game over, but they are much more powerful than the base weapons you can use. A bomb can be left where Mikey is currently standing, and then it will blow up and it can kill enemies or reveal hidden doorways. And then you have the Molotov cocktail. These can be thrown at enemies to damage them with fire. Be warned though, both the bombs and the Molotov cocktails have the potential of damaging Mikey if he gets too close. But now let's move on to a very large aspect of the game, and that's how doorways work. And no, it's not as simple as just going in one and coming out the other. Throughout the game, the player will be entering various doorways found throughout the levels. When the player enters a doorway, the game will then enter first-person mode. When in this mode, 4 commands are displayed on the left portion of the screen: go, hit, take, and tolls. Each one serves a different purpose depending on the room the player is currently in. The go command allows the player to move from room to room. The hit command allows the player to hit the walls or NPCs with either a fist or a hammer in hopes of revealing a hidden doorway or hidden items. The take command allows the player to pick up any items they may find in a room. And then finally, the tools command, as the name suggests, allows the player to use any tools or items they have found throughout their adventures. Some of these doorways can also be used to warp from one area of the map to another, and are also where Mikey will find his captured friends. So, we've gone over most of the game mechanics, but how well has the game actually held up over all these years? And I can happily say the game has held up very well. I actually don't have many complaints on how this game works. Yes, the ice areas can be a bit extreme on how much you slide around, and it's near impossible to dodge enemies while you're on ladders or vines, but other than that, I was really happy with the game. Never did I actually find myself bored or extremely frustrated. Yes, the game is very challenging, but it's in a good way like many other NES titles. And a big part of that challenge is trying to figure out where to go next or what to do next. Yes, new players to this game will get lost, and they will get lost a lot. But to me, that's part of the fun. It allowed me to actually feel like I was exploring, and not just going from place A to B as part of a script. If you haven't played the Goonies 2 yet, I highly recommend doing so. Don't get discouraged by how easy it is to get lost or not being exactly clear what to do next. Explore and discover for yourself, and then when you finally do figure it out, it will be that much more rewarding, I assure you. This has been a look back at the Goonies 2 for the NES.